If you take photos, especially raw files, you're gonna want to edit them. And I mean, if you don't, then why are you shooting raw? Right? But I've noticed from talking to other photographers, maybe particularly older ones, but not always, there seems to be a bit of a like, oh, you edit your photos? Editing is a big term. I suppose what I mean specifically is just sliders in Lightroom to make adjustments to an image rather than completely changing it with Photoshop. So this could be bringing up the shadows in a landscape. It could be cropping in to recompose the image. It could even be using the remove tool to get rid of like someone stood in the corner that I didn't want to be there. But it can also mean changing the colors to evoke a different feeling, or going pretty hard with masks just to change every bit of the image. That's not the only reason to edit. You can edit because you just messed up taking the photo. If your image is poorly exposed, you can fix that with editing. If your white balance is off, you can adjust that with editing. If you shoot it too high in ISO, you can denoise your image with editing. But then that's raw files. What about JPEGs? So I know in photojournalism, they use JPEGs a lot because they're small in size, they're easy to send over, and they don't require editing. So you can just take your pictures and then like transfer them over to your editor or superior at the newspaper. And some people just enjoy not having to edit the photos. They enjoy just letting the camera take and process the image. But the camera's still processing the image. People would always say, oh, Canon has the best colors. But that's how they process the JPEGs in camera. Your camera's just doing everything that like I could do in Lightroom in the camera. And I mean, even if you don't use an art filter like on Olympus or set your camera to be vivid, it's going to probably up the sharpening a bit, it's going to increase the saturation just a little bit, and it's going to edit your photos. And I think what people really mean when they say they don't like edited photos is they don't like images that aren't true to life. And here's my gripe with the true to life statement. This is a polarizing filter, which is most often used to remove shine from wet objects or like just the shine on water and make it look clear. That's not true to life. I mean, what about ND filters? You know, long exposure photography in general, that's definitely not true to life. This waterfall doesn't just sit there looking like a Patronus from Harry Potter. And I don't just mean filters. If you take even a regular kind of everyday kit lens, right, and you have it set to be at its widest, you're going to get a bit of distortion. And that's even amplified in fisheyes. That distortion isn't true to life. And the same with telephotos and their compression that they give. That's not true to life. So I know I got a bit reductionist, I suppose, and I know what people really mean. They mean it was the water that blew when you took this image. Or that sky looks purple. Or like, oh, you edited out the fence post. I've been there. I know there's a fence post there. But my whole counterpoint here is photography doesn't have to be true to life. Most photos of landmarks are taken at golden hour when there's a bit of fog. Do you know what I mean? All of the images for visiting Ireland of like all our landmarks, like the Cliffs of Moher or Newgrange, they're taken in beautiful lighting conditions in nice clear days or a few clouds. That's not true to life. That's true to life maybe like for a few hours on one day in a very specific season. And these true to life people really love black and white images, but that's not how life is. Do you know what I mean? I think they think that editing an image is just click a button and it does it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think they know the work involved into actually editing. And like, yeah, there's people that'll just pop a preset on something. But then you also have people like me that'll go in and like mask something out and adjust that mask. I have a whole video on my Lightroom workflow if people are interested. Or they'll say, oh, it's not authentic. It's not like it was back in the day of film. The type of film you used would dictate what the image looked like. And you can still edit in the darkroom. You dodge and burn. Those are terms that enter the digital realm from the darkroom. So I think the whole true to life thing is just what they say when they think, that doesn't look like how I think it should look. And I use the term ethical in the title, right? Or unethical. I don't know which one I actually chose. And the only time I think it's actually unethical to edit an image is when that image is meant to convey a story and you're using editing to alter that story. For example, if you're doing some documentary photography of a protest, let's say you crop in a lot, make it look like there's more people there than there actually is. Or you go quite extreme and Photoshop in people that aren't there. That's quite unethical. But if you're just bringing up the shadows, I don't think that's unethical. Let's say you're doing photojournalism and you're off in some war zone taking photos. I think if you take a photo on the fly and it's badly exposed, there's nothing wrong with exposing that properly in something like Lightroom. But if you are using, if you're masking out the sky and adding like a green haze to it to make it look like there's gas or whatever, then yeah, that's unethical, because you're like miscommunicating the truth that you're meant to be capturing. There's portraits as well. Like I'm not a portrait photographer. I've had no portraits taken of me, so I'm not really going to touch on it. But there's a lot been said over the years about how portraits of people, particularly women, aren't very true to life. So I don't really have an answer here. I was just like trying to get my side of the story out. I don't think it's super unethical to like take your sky and just add a bit of, warmth and then dehaze it a bit to make the sun look better. I don't think it's particularly unethical to blur out the background a bit more than it is. I don't think it's unethical to remove a fence post in an image, and removing a fence post in real life is probably quite unethical. Whereas I think it's like a bit more different. Like every image you see is edited in some way. Most movies that you watch have been color graded to give you a certain emotion out of the scene. Your TV is probably set up in a way that changes the images being displayed on it, maybe increases the saturation, increases the contrast. And I think it's just a lot of people thinking that editing can really save a bad image. And like, yeah, you can if the image is bad from like a technical point of view. But if you think of it from the craft point of view, the composition, the actual artistic side, I think it's very hard to try and take an image that was very badly taken and then fix that with editing. There's a saying that I learned when teaching music, and I'm going to alter it slightly to make it kind of YouTube friendly, and it's bad in, bad out. If you take a bad image, you cannot save it much in Lightroom. And for me, I think editing is like a separate art form to photography, and you see that most when Nigel Danson does this every so often as well, where he'll like edit his viewers' photos, or you see editing competitions where everyone's given the same DNG file and then they go and have to edit it. Editing is an artistic expression. You wouldn't say a painting is bad or unethical because they decided to make the sky look purple instead of blue. I didn't really plan a great conclusion of this. If you like the edits I'm showing in the video, I have a video linked here on my Lightroom process. And if you just like the images you saw in general, I have my Instagram link down below, and I also share images every so often with the community tab here on YouTube. Comment down below. I know everyone says that, but I'm actually curious as to what your views are on this thing. But if you like photography content, give a subscribe, please. I make new videos nearly every week. I was meant to do one last week, but I'm hoping 2 this week will be all right. They focus on photography and the Micro Four Thirds system in general, but I also make videos about using old equipment in the modern day to see if it's worth it. So, cheers.